So here's a book I've also mentioned before on project planning. And in this, Bent Flugja talks about different heuristics of project planners. And he also has a paper that you see on the screen now about eliciting these heuristics. And I thought we could just show a couple more examples of heuristics that we discussed in the book. So here are 15, and I'm going to go through some of them because I realized that we actually talk about this later in the course. So first of all, crossing the river, if you only know the average. So this relates to the thing that if you know the average measurements of a pilot, you don't want to make a cockpit for the average pilot. You need to understand how these different things vary. You need to allocate the contingency for unexpected events. So, for example, have savings, or in your project, have some slack in your budget, because there are always going to be some unexpected events for which you will need that. Doing something big, so one project for 10,000 instead of 100 projects for 100 euros, then is sort of dangerous because doing one big thing can cause the whole big thing to fail. And it's smarter to try and modularize it into smaller things. So you build one sub project and you make it work, and then you repeat the basic idea of that sub project in order to get the bigger portion of the project done. And this way build the thing up from bottom up. We're learning all the time from the mistakes you did from the previous phases or module. Thinking from right to left is about sort of knowing what you want to achieve and trying to map the steps on how to do it, and the uncertainties relating to those steps. And there are some caveats to this, but we will discuss them later. And then this idea of that there's value in not doing anything, and so in these very complex systems, but if you always want to do something, and we all often feel the pressure to act and do something, and there's a large literature on, for example, World Bank development projects where they actually ended up making things worse instead of better. We will discuss this more when we talk about interventions. And it's often easier to not to figure out what you should do than to figure out what's going to happen. And in this sense, it's easier for me to know what an economic downturn will do to me, and for me to try to take precautions and prevent those bad things to happening to me in the case of an economic downturn. But it's super hard to try and predict when an economic downturn would actually take place. So there's this large need for precautionary actions in these things that can be very bad for me, and generally trying to be prepared rather than trying to predict when bad things happen. And there's the EGAP principle, and we'll talk more later about. Really, you should try to plan such that you don't rely on the data being right and your forecasts being right, but you actually try to position yourself in such a way that when things fail, they don't cause these domino effects where everything will fail because one project failed, for example.